First, I want to thank Leslie for inviting us here. This is, and forgive me, I don't do podiums. This has been a tremendous event for us. We've made and met many friends, partners. I hope to give you a little bit different perspective this morning on some of the information that's been presented. But first I'm going to tell you a little bit about who we are. Maybe. There we go. We were founded in 2010. A couple Marine veterans sitting watching the disaster unfold in Haiti as the earthquake wiped out large sections of the country, deaths, unbelievable, uncountable deaths. They had to do something. We have an impetus to serve. We are, as military veterans, it's just in our nature, it's in our DNA. They gathered a few of their friends, landed in Dominican Republic, snuck across the border. They're in Haiti. It was a medical mission. We went down to do as much triage and provide as much medical assistance as we possibly could. In 2011, the tornadoes in Tuscaloosa, many of us in the room probably remember this one, that really changed the focus of Team Rubicon from an international medical response team to a domestic disaster response organization. And we started to, this is where we launched into exponential growth and bringing on more and more of the veteran community to assist with disaster response. 2012, Hurricane Sandy, we actually made CNN. For the first time, people were starting to hear about who we were. It was our first venture on a national stage. Over time, obviously we grew. In 2013, we do a national conference every year. We had this national conference and our CEO, Jake Wood, presented a strategic plan. And one of the 5 components on the strategic plan was in 5 years, we'd hit 75,000 volunteers. I think at the time we were probably 2,500. We all just couldn't really contain the laughter. How in the hell are we going to get there? One of those other strategic plans, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, was that in 5 years we would move beyond the response phase into actually recovery and helping homeowners get their lives back together. 2017, we launched the Rebuild program, which we'll talk more about in a moment, and 2018, we like to consider it a success and a long-term piece of our organization. You can see exponential growth in both members and response operations. As our membership grows, obviously we have more and more opportunities to deploy volunteers across the country. Today, as I stand here, we are roughly 92,000 volunteers strong across the country. Roughly 70, and it varies as new volunteers sign up, but roughly 70 to 75% of our volunteers are military veterans. We do not discriminate. If you want to come help and you want to help a disaster survivor and you want to get dirty, we will give you a gray shirt and we will make sure you get dirty. You can see the breakdown. Largely our volunteers are employed. Various branches of the military, all branches. 2017, obviously 2018's not done for us, if you can only imagine, with 2 recent huge hurricanes. But 2018, these are the numbers. We did 61 operations. Our net donation to the communities was $6.4 million of labor provided in the response world, helping communities get back on their feet and clean up after disasters. needless to say, 2017 was a pretty rough year for all of us in the disaster world. Revenue, we are largely funded by various foundations and nonprofit organizations. Everybody knows who Bill and Melinda Gates are, those types of foundations. Individual donors make up about 30%. My mother actually gives $11 a month. We have an extensive network of individual donors who make small donations every month, and that actually accounts for a very large portion of our revenue. And lastly, business corporations. We have partners like AT&T, T-Mobile, Home Depot. I know I'm missing some really important ones. USAA. God, I absolutely can't forget USAA. That would be a real shame if I had missed that opportunity. Allocation-wise, so you will find on my next slide, we are an extremely transparent organization. We have absolutely no qualms showing you what we do with our money. We run about 10%, 10 to 15%, or 10 to 12% on administrative costs, and we do spend a little bit of money raising money. But by and large, the money that is donated to our organization is used for programmatic costs. In 2018, we just launched what we call the Open Initiative, and we have literally opened our books to the world. We have put every bit of data, every information we can possibly collect on our website. We'll tell you where every dollar went, where every dollar came from, where every dollar went, how many trainings we did, how many volunteers there are, how many people we trained, what we trained them in. There is really no data capture that we have not made public. We are hoping this produces an impetus across the nonprofit world to actually be a little more transparent. We like to pride ourselves as disruptors in the disaster world, and this is one of those moves. So rebuild. In 2017, as you guys well know, is a pretty rough year for a lot of people. Our CEO had said in 2013 in his 5-year strategic plan, he wanted to launch into long-term recovery and get into the rebuild world. 2017 was the perfect opportunity. The resources provided by our donors allowed us to step into this world, but there are some other factors involved too. Response is sexy, right? That's where the news media is. That's where the donors want to be. You see all the graphic pictures. You've seen them today, yesterday. That's the world we come from. But recovery is not so glamorous. It takes decades. They're just wrapping up long-term recovery groups in New York from Hurricane Sandy or Superstorm Sandy. Katrina is the same way. There's still recovery groups rebuilding from Katrina. So long-term recovery is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And funding that is completely different than funding a 2-week, 3-week disaster response. So there's a funding gap in long-term recovery. That's part of the reason we're here in this space, not here in this room. The other is there's no shortage of need. And the need that we see and we've talked about for the last few days is not the world that we live in. We've talked a lot about homeowners with insurance. I got involved in a conversation about homeowners selecting between granite countertops and what other neighbors may have. Our client isn't making the decision about granite countertops. Their decision is, do I pay the electric bill or do I eat? These are people who are at the lower end of the economic scale. They don't have insurance. They can't afford insurance. Our first speaker today talked about a homeowner in Houston who had become an expert at filling out disaster or flood forms. That's not because she wants to. It's because she has no choice. That's the hand. That's the hand that's been dealt to her. So some organization is rebuilding that home time and time again. But we're missing the boat, because that's where we have the opportunity to capture resilient building that will prevent her from doing that damn paperwork one more time. That's the focus I want you guys to walk away. I've got a lot more, but that's the focus. That's my soapbox for this week. There's a whole population out there that's affected by disasters, that don't have insurance. They don't have a car to leave. They don't have food on the table. If it's not for some nonprofit like ours, they're never going to recover from this storm. So we have a moral dilemma to make. I have a finite amount of money. It's all donor-based. For the most part, Hurricane Harvey happens, everybody opens their checkbook, they write a check, they write Hurricane Harvey on the bottom. That's restricted funds. I got to spend that for Hurricane Harvey. That's good. That's cool. But the need is endless. So I have a limited pool of money. I have an endless population, an endless supply of need. The moral dilemma is, how much money do I invest in every single property that we fix? Do we bring those people whole, bring them back to where they were? Or do we actually make the investment to make them resilient? That sounds like it should be an easy decision. But if I make an additional $1,000 or $2,000 investment in a single home, somebody over here is not going to get any help at all. That's the dilemma. That's the world we live in. Finding a way to do this economically and make this a common practice in the response and recovery world is where this moves forward. These people, they want this. They've already lost their home. We saw it this morning. There's a psychological impact. When you build back better. But these are low-educated individuals for the most part. They don't know what's behind it. They didn't have any idea what's behind that drywall until the response team started tearing out all the mold in their house. They're very vulnerable. But this is the opportunity we have. This is where we capture resilient rebuilding, so the woman in Houston is not filling out that paper again. Man, I keep looking at that timer and it keeps clicking away. It didn't play. There we go.
The need was overwhelming.
We could not ever fathom the amount of rainfall that started to drop around Houston, Texas.
You know, the police chief went on the TV and said, every citizen with a boat, put your boat in the water. You know, we have tens of thousands of people that need rescuing.
So we're watching this unfold and we just felt this need to act.
You know, about an hour later, I called our head of field operations and I said, go buy boats. And he said, we've already bought 6. By this point, we've got hundreds of volunteers on the ground. We would ultimately deploy about 2,000 people to Texas.
getting to interact with the affected homeowners and to see the joy and the relief on people's faces, it's incredibly powerful.
We really couldn't do this job.
It put a great impact, not only on myself, but the community, and we thank God for them coming out.
We were flooded with water, and now we're flooded with kindness and help.
Thank you
Thank you, with all our hearts.
We still knew that there was a lot of need within Houston, and we still had a lot of resources that we could bring to bear. So at that point, we decided that it was best for the community that we start a rebuild program. Started with, identifying the right people, getting the right resources in, and now we have what we have today.
We literally give everything that we have to put into this program. You're surrounded by a bunch of people who have been given a purpose again and kind of working together as a team.
Felt like my purpose and my time wasn't up in Texas.
There's a natural progression from gutting and mucking someone's house out to actually seeing it rebuilt. And that's why we committed to sticking with these communities, seeing them completely through this disaster.
Every waking hour was dedicated to helping our gray shirts get out in the field and making a huge impact in the community. It's something that we've never seen before, and I think it's a testament to the growth of our organization that, we were able to do so much with so little in so short amount of time, more so than we've ever done before. And it's really exciting for me to see this and also now what we're capable of to do in the future. And it's going to be so much larger and so much better.
I love you guys like as if you were my own family, and that's how I treated your home.
That's cool. Just let it go. So I want to try to make this quick. So how do we do this? Our goal, I'm a firm believer I'm a firm preacher in the micro church of we don't treat enough people to do trade skills in this country. There's a huge trade skill gap. So our goal is to take veterans, bring them into our program, provide them with job skills and trade skills training, rebuilding homes, repurposing their skills and experience to disaster recovery, long-term recovery and rebuilding, and that will hopefully generate potential job opportunities for them in the future. We have corporations coming to us now saying, just let us know when they're out, we'll hire all of them, because there are, obviously they're veterans. They come with a certain trade skill and a certain discipline, and they're also well-trained. So we put them through an extensive training program. The guy in the upper left-hand corner might look familiar. He's here on the stage with me. He leads our training program. We put these veterans through a training program. We teach them, it's a construction 101, how to build, and we send them out on job sites under the direct supervision of well-trained, well-skilled superintendents, and let them lead housing projects. And that result is homeowners, completely gut their house, we provide them with a brand new home, essentially. Puerto Rico, so we have 3 rebuild locations going on now. One is Houston, one is Puerto Rico, and one is Naples. We just launched here in Naples, Florida. Puerto Rico is a challenge, if you haven't already heard that. Puerto Rico actually has some of the strictest building code standards for hurricanes in the world. Nobody pays attention to them. 60% of the homes in Puerto Rico are what's called informal housing, built to no code, built by the homeowner. It looks like this now. This is a fairly recent photo. There's still 30,000 properties in Puerto Rico with blue tarps on their roof. They're built in small communities by the homeowners, by the neighbors. They're not built professionally because nobody can afford that on the island. This is the kind of stuff we see. My engineering friend will love this. This is the construction style. So there are no anchors, there are no bolts, there are no nails in a lot of cases. And the net result is there's no roof. These are the people lucky enough to still have a structure standing. We won't even get into the rest of them. So we hired a local contractor, our local engineering firm, to try to figure out this moral dilemma that I was just discussing. How do we rebuild a roof, get a roof back over these people's houses cost effectively, but it's not going to blow off next time? Because we could have gone the other route. We could have just put back the traditional roof. It would have been cheaper. We could have helped more people, but we chose the other way. You got to take these people out of the fight at some point in the time. So our local engineering firm designed full plans for us how to do this. The net result is you have to make something work. You have to start somewhere to make these homes resilient. The people in Puerto Rico just want their roof to stay. That's their goal. So we came up with a series of engineering techniques, including brackets and bracing, and hired professional contractors. And this is the net result. Actually, this home I put on here to show, this home actually wouldn't even support a roofing system, so we had to build an exoskeleton around the house. This is very typical in Puerto Rico. But this is the net result. So we've got a roof that's bolted to the house. It's not going anywhere next time. Again, we could have taken a cheaper route. This is the avenue we chose to go. That house isn't going anywhere. This is what I'm talking about. This is how we need to approach recovery in this country. We need to get these people out of the fight. This is what it looks like on the inside. Compare that to the picture you saw a few minutes ago, and this is where it's at. So real quickly, our move into the future is to try to figure out how to do this on a mass scale. How do we provide a quality product that's resilient? But it's got to be volunteer friendly, because we're 90,000 volunteers. They're the ones who are doing the work for us. It's got to be volunteer friendly, got to be something they can work on. And it's got to provide the opportunity for us to give veterans professional development training that they can take into the real world and get real jobs. Everybody's seen this house about 30 times this week, right? There's a little bit of a story behind it, and they're on the stage here. This house is conducted with Nudura ICF blocks. The house behind it just happened to be a lucky placement. To us, this is where we see the future in our organization as a means and methods to provide long-term, stable, resilient practice construction, new construction for disaster survivors. If we can take this beautiful large home and reduce it down to 1,000 square foot model that works for a low-income, small family who can't afford anything else, I can have volunteers build it and I can give it to them for free. They won't be back next time. Okay, so let's do some questions.